Hello everybody and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Pebble Beach Pro-Am DFS Tactics show. I've got quite a long intro, so bear with me because we also have a lot to cover. A lot of tournament news to get into, and plus I want to take as many questions as I can. So to try to get through this as quickly as possible, forgive me if I have to look down. I don't have a teleprompter. But the first thing is that there is an ice storm in the forecast for my area. So if the stream suddenly goes down, that is going to be the reason why. I will get to any questions that I can get to. If you have any, reach out to the email that's in the description, or find me on social media, which the links to those are in the description as well. And I'll do my best to get to your questions. I'm hoping that if the stream goes down, that the entire internet doesn't, but I can't promise anything, just thanks to the weather. For those who were here for the Data Dive show Monday night, you will appreciate that I have not one but two drinks ready for you all, so hopefully that shit show won't happen again. Then, speaking of the Data Dive show, it was fantastic to have the interaction that I did with chat. There were so many questions. It was a fun episode, fun show, and I hope that really continues. I really do. It brings me, it's gratifying for me to be able to talk to you all, that you all take my advice, good and bad, and kind of build a community and have fun. Jump into chat and ask questions, or if you just want to show up and make fun of me, I mean, that's perfectly reasonable almost every episode anyway. But to that point about the community, there was a viewer who posted a comment on the Data Dive show. I believe the comment was yesterday, and they asked about two names. So make sure you stay tuned for that, because there's one especially that is very, very intriguing and in the 6Ks. And all the credit goes to that viewer for bringing these two players, and especially this one in the 6Ks, to my attention. So hopefully that viewer is watching, and the credit, and I will acknowledge it when we get to it. So that's just part of the community aspect that I love, and I hope you all are enjoying it and keep doing it. Keep jumping in chat and whatnot. So tournament news that I alluded to, there have been 4 withdrawals that I have seen, and there might have been more. Will Zalatoris and John Huh withdrew yesterday. Zalatoris tested positive for COVID. I don't know what John Huh's withdrawal was. And then today, I found out about it around 6 p.m. It may have been sooner. Daniel Berger withdrew due to the back issue that he had last week at the Farmers, and I mentioned it in the tournament fact sheet that I send out to my subscribers, that the reason I picked who I did was due to the fact that Berger had the unknown health concerns at the time that I wrote that article, and then plus the Zalatoris withdrawal made that pick pretty obvious. And then also James Hahn has withdrawn. So those are 4 withdrawals that I know about. So if you have submitted some lineups and you have those players, especially Zalatoris and Berger, make sure you go and check those, adjust as needed. That all out of the way, all statistics are provided by Fantasy National, as they are every episode. See, as soon as I go off script, it's done. All statistics provided by FantasyNational.com. Amazing resource. Go check it out. It's well worth the investment. It makes me a lot better, and I'm an idiot, so it's going to make you a ton better. It allows me to do what I do. It's an amazing resource. I can't say any more about it. I spoke to it earlier. The links to my social media are in the description, as well as the email to reach out to me if you want to be a part of the bonus content that I send to my subscribers. The aforementioned tournament fact sheets, some bonus videos and such. So make sure you reach out to me at those places if you want to be a part of that. And then lastly, chat is open, it's live. Jump in there. I really do appreciate all the support that I've gotten as I continue to build the channel. I want to take your all's questions. I enjoy looking at specific things, so jump in there if you have any questions. If you want to look at some last minute, this or that player and all that such. So with that long intro out of the way, let's figure out our tactics for our DFS lineups for the 2022 Pebble Beach Pro-Am. And we transition over here. Hopefully the camera doesn't frizz out. Hey, look at that. This is the data model that I ended up with. And I'm going to be honest with you. Last week I wasn't too confident because I was using so many metrics. 14, I believe, is what I used to be exact. I feel pretty good about the majority of this. Actually, about 95% of this. And I'll get to the last 5% when we get to it. But to start off with, we talked about short courses and difficult courses throughout the week because Pebble Beach is pretty difficult. The reason I focused on short courses only is because all three courses, Monterey Peninsula, Spyglass Hill, and Pebble Beach, are all short. They're all under 7,000 yards most of the time. I'm sure when they move tees, they might measure right at 7,000 or a little above. Hey Joey, how you doing? I just brought up chat. Thanks for tuning in, man. I really do appreciate it. But all three of these courses are short. And while Pebble Beach is certainly difficult, and they are playing 2 of the 4 rounds there, this is not Torrey Pines, where they're playing 3 of the 4 rounds at Torrey Pines South, or the difficult course. They're only playing 2. So I didn't feel comfortable using difficult as some of the metrics. So I focused entirely on short courses, and because all 3 are short, I went ahead and put a full 15% in that. I feel pretty confident in it. I won't argue against if somebody wanted to say maybe put 10% in it. But I put a little extra emphasis into it. Strokes gained approach. If you've followed the channel, followed me for any time, I prefer this metric above all others. It actually doesn't play too much into Pebble Beach. I could certainly, you could certainly justify 5%. Anytime I have any doubt of where some percentage goes, I just add it to here. So 10% in approach. We talked a lot about POA putting in the Data Dive show on Monday. And it seemed like that if a player performed well on POA surfaces, it was generally consistent throughout. Some guys would have, if they're on Bermuda or bent, you'll have your spike weeks and whatnot, and that's certainly true for POA. But generally speaking, if you're positive on POA, you're positive. You just know how to putt that surface. And because they're coming off a tournament that was POA, I put extra emphasis in the putting this week because, again, the recency of the POA from last week's Farmers, and all 3 courses are POA greens here at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. All 3, Monterey, Spyglass, and Pebble Beach, are all POA. So I put the extra emphasis in that. And again, it's kind of like the strokes gained total. I feel pretty good about that. It'll, I don't want to say it'll artificially inflate, but you just have to be prepared that somebody like Adam Hadwin, Denny McCarthy, the generally good putters, are going to rise, but it'll really emphasize the guys who putt well on POA, and that's what we want. We also had some discussion during the week, especially last week leading up to the Farmers, about birdies and bogeys and all that stuff, and last week I used both birdies gained and bogeys avoided on difficult courses. Well, just like the strokes gained total, I didn't feel comfortable using any metrics of difficulty, so I just put 5% in bogeys avoided. We saw how that was the more important factor for the Pebble Beach Pro-Am than birdies gained. There's also no secret that greens in regulation were a big component. So I put another 15% in greens, especially since these are the smallest. I confirmed these are the smallest greens on the PGA Tour. If you're hitting the green, you're by definition a lot closer to the hole than normal. 5% in the proximity of 100 to 125. Even though it wasn't the strongest correlation in terms of other metrics, it was some of the strongest proximity correlation that I have seen in a long time. And it also helps that almost double the average tour event is where the approach shots come from here. I believe almost 22% of approach shots come from 100 to 125 here at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, whereas the regular tour event or average tour event is about 11%, so almost double. So there's why I have 5%. I'm going to skip par 3, so spoiler, there's the 5% that I'm not comfortable or not confident in. I've made it no secret the past 2 or 3 weeks, strokes gained par 4 is the most important metric, or at least in my eyes, to correlating high leaderboard success. So I put 15% in that, and it's true here at Pebble Beach as well. And then no matter if you are a winner, top 5, top 10, strokes gained par 5 is probably the most important metric here at Pebble Beach. It is the one eagle chance there is on Pebble Beach golf links. Again, I admitted in the initial research show I'm pretty ignorant on Monterey and Spyglass. I just don't know those courses very well. But considering that they're pretty easy, I imagine the par 5s are gettable. So I put a 15% in strokes gained par 5. So that leaves us with 95% that I'm fairly confident in. You could argue moving some percentages around and whatnot, but we come to the last 5%. And I have toyed with this 5% almost all day. I've went par 3s, I've went scrambling, I've went off the tee. We spent quite a bit of time in the Data Dive show talking about off the tee and how it was a little kind of hidden from leaderboard success. And I really don't know what's correct to use. I went par 3s. And the reason being is that over the years, it has seemed like that was the more consistent metric, even if it was a little less correlating to high leaderboard success. And we saw that in the breakdown, the par 3s were more important than the par 4s for for players who finished in the top 10. As you went top 5 and winners, it got less and less and less important. And so did off the tee to some extent. So that's why I favored par 3 over off the tee, and clearly only at 5% because I'm not confident where this 5% should go. If you have a strong inclination, and if you're a member at Fantasy National, tell me in the chat, would you put that kind of 5% in, or what would you do, adjust this data model, because I am not very confident in this 5% at all. And that's just being transparent, full disclosure. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know exactly what's going to happen, and that I'm 100% locked in that these are the percentages and the metrics that you should put them in. I'm confident on about 95% of it. This one I'm not. But it is in the data model at 5%, so there's the reasoning why. So when I filter or load the mixed condition model, here are my rankings. It goes Patrick Cantlay, Will Zalatoris, Cameron Tringali, Maverick McNeely, Tom Hoagy 5th, Daniel Berger, Lonto Griffin, Aaron Rye, Justin Rose, and Russell Knox. Now, yes, I did say Will Zalatoris, he is withdrawn. I did say Daniel Berger, he is withdrawn. But they were in my top 10, Zalatoris being 2nd, Berger 6th. So if you wanted adjusted top 10, it would go Cantlay, Tringali, McNeely, Hoagy, Griffin, Rye, Rose, Knox, Pereira, and Seamus Power would be my adjusted top 10. I don't think it'd be any surprise why Patrick Cantley is number one, especially considering now that Will Zalatoris and Daniel Berger have withdrawn. But even if they hadn't withdrawn, he would be number one in my data model. Best in the field at par 4 and par 5 scoring. And when you have 30% combined between the two, that's going to vault you up the rankings board. Second in greens. We saw how much greens are a factor here at Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Sixth in strokes gained, short courses. Now, he is not the greatest, as in pretty bad, at the proximity of 100 to 125, which is the most common proximity here at Pebble Beach Pro-Am. If that is a factor, that could hold him back. But I don't know how much the proximity is going to be a factor. It was a little bit at the Farmers when we did the 200 plus. But I don't think it was the sole factor why Luke List won. I think it was a part of it, but not a lot. And the same goes for Cantlay here. I mean, he's a world-class player anyway. He's played this event 4 times. He averages a top 25 finish. He's just good, and he's good here at this tournament. So I don't think there's any surprise why he's number one. Tringali has been playing some fantastic golf. I personally don't think it'll be too long before he gets his first win like Luke List did last week. Yeah, I mean, he does nothing bad. His worst stat is 39th on par 3s, and again, that's 5% of a stat that I'm not sure where that 5% should go. Now, he's not the best on POA putting, but he's not bad either. I mean, he's still 38th out of 155 or 54. Top 10 in par 5 scoring, top 15 in short courses and par 4 metrics and avoiding bogeys. Tringali's pretty darn good. McNeely, very hot right now. And he's a tournament favorite for a reason. He plays this course well. He's from California. I get it. Yeah. Tom Hoagy, maybe not as expected, but the irons. This guy doesn't get enough credit for being as good of an iron player as he is. He's 5th best in the field. He's the best at the proximity, 100 to 125. If par 3s matter, he's 2nd best there. 3rd best in short courses. There's a lot to like here with Tom Hoagy. I'm a little hesitant because the POA putting is erratic or at least erratic by POA standards, is the way I'll put that. So there's my, I guess, top 4, and then Lonto Griffin would be 5th in the adjusted. A lot to like there with him as well. I want to highlight a couple of guys as we go through the price board, but this is going to be a pretty long show, or at least I'm trying to get through as much as I can in case the ice storm does hit. So let's go ahead and sort by salary, and we'll start with the 10Ks. And again, don't mind the stars. They're just guys that I have in my top, I think, 3rd for when I generate lineups in Fantasy National. So there's no reason to pay extra attention to the stars unless you want to go straight by my rankings, which I don't recommend. I'm flattered if you do, but do your own research, absolutely. But anyway, 10K guys, you've got 2 this week, Cantlay and Spieth. And it's surprising, at least it was very surprising to me, that Spieth ended 132nd in my data model. He did miss the cut last week at the Farmers, but that was a tough course. He does not play easy courses well, or he doesn't play them as well as he should or as others do. I mean, 123rd out of 150 whatever players, I mean, that's going to hold you down. And when you have 15% in that, I mean, he's got one good statistic of the ones that I concentrated on, and that's putting on POA. I mean, otherwise, his irons honestly haven't been good lately. His greens, I mean, just because of the irons being bad, his greens have been shit. I mean, it has not been good since the resurgence last summer. You see the POA. You would think that he would be okay because easy versus difficult, it looks all the same, but he's just not taking advantage of the easy courses the way he should. And you look here, his 6 of his last 7 measured rounds of strokes gained approach are atrocious. I mean, the one time he was positive, he was only gaining a half a stroke on the field for the tournament. I mean, Tour Championship -6, the Tournament Champions -4.5. That was coming off a summer where he was back to the old Jordan Spieth. 2016-17 Jordan Spieth, where he was just dialed in. I mean, look at all these top 10s and 20s in majors and premium events. But since then, I mean, no cut event 20 of 30. CJ Cup he played okay, but the irons still weren't good. Century, you had record setters, 3 record setters that week, and he finished 21st. Farmers was bad, just no other way to put it, bad. So that is why Spieth has fallen so low in my data model. Is he 132nd in this field? Realistically, no. But you can tell that I am going to completely fade Jordan Spieth this week. Whereas last week I was all over him because of the projected little amount of ownership. And if he would have made the cut, it would have been a fantastic DFS week for me. Instead, it was just good because Spieth missed the cut. So now that I'm off of him, he's going to go win the tournament. Now, that's just the way it goes. But 10Ks, like I said, Zalatoris and Berger have withdrawn, so you only have Cantley and Spieth. And I waited as long as I could to check the ownership projections, to try and get as much data as I could, let Fantasy National calibrate these withdrawals today. And again, as of 9, I just refreshed it, so it's 9:22 Eastern, 9:22 p.m. Eastern time. You got Cantlay at 20%, which is to be expected. He is the most projected owned player now, especially with the Berger and Zalatoris withdrawal. And Spieth is up to 11.5%. So, I mean, he's still technically a pivot, but 11.5% is still fairly high, especially for a player that I'm just not sold on this week. Sorry, again, as I go through my tabs of my screens over here, chat gets minimized. So that's it for the 10Ks. I mean, I got nothing else for you. It's Cantley and it's chalky, but probably the best play. Or if you want to be unique, take Spieth. And I can't recommend it just based on my rankings, but it is a pivot. 9Ks, you've got Jason Day, McNeely, Rose, Tringali, Power, Fitzpatrick, Streelman, and Kisner. And in here you've got one pivot and a middling. Everybody else is really damn chalky, and that's due to the fact that Berger and Zalatoris have withdrawn. So your pivot is actually Matthew Fitzpatrick, and he did not pop on a whole lot of data models that I had, or like the statistics that I highlighted throughout the week. I even mentioned the Data Dive show. I think one of the last things we looked at was par fives, and that was the first time we had mentioned Matthew Fitzpatrick. So, I don't know. I'm always wary of Fitzpatrick and Fleetwood and those types that split time on tour and split time pretty heavily. Players like Justin Rose, Terrell Hatton, Jason Day's Australian, not a European, but these guys are predominantly over here. Now they'll go over to is it WP World Tour? DP World Tour is what it's called now. They'll go over there and play in a few events, but not many. They're predominantly over here. Fitzpatrick, like I said, Fleetwood, others of that ilk, it's a pure split time. So I'm wary of those types of guys. I don't know where their game is. I don't keep up with the DP World Tour. Maybe I should. But that's where I am on Fitzpatrick. And I understand why he's the pivot at 7%. The middling ownership here is Kevin Kisner at 9%. Again, I can understand why he's a fantastic putter, especially on POA. There's not really a lot else to like here, and so I'm off of him. Then everybody else in here is in between 14 and 19.5%. You can probably guess who the 19.5 is. It's Maverick McNeely. I don't have Jason Day starred because he's not in the top third, but you know he's played here every year of the past 5 events. Averages a top 5 finish, or maybe top 6. He loves this tournament. He loves this tournament for whatever reason. He just doesn't grade out well in the metrics that I used. But he plays this event well. If you are a big proponent of previous course history, you need to use Jason Day. You would need to use Kevin Streelman. He's played this event well, very well in the past. At 9,100, he's not quite the bargain that he was at the Farmers last week. People didn't think about Kevin Streelman playing difficult courses well and all that stuff. And while it wasn't a rousing success, he made the cut to a middling finish and helped in DFS if you used him. This week at 9,100 and projected ownership around 14%, he's not the value that he was last week. So I'm out on Streelman, and that's I'm going to lose if Day and or Streelman play well. I always tell you as an analyst that you can't cover every base. You have to choose what you're willing to lose to. Last week I was willing to lose if Tony Finau played well, and I faded him only because of the ownership. If he was slightly less owned, I would have probably played him some. But just due to the sheer amount of projected ownership, I completely faded him, and it worked in my favor. It's not always going to be that way. Very well could be that Jason Day wins the tournament, Kevin Streelman top 5s, and I don't cash one lineup. But that is what I'm choosing to lose to this week. Especially Kevin Streelman. It's hard for me not to use Jason Day, especially considering he's generally a good putter on POA, and he wasn't last week, which I'm thinking is an outlier. Other than that, I mean, these three, I would personally take Tringali. He's the lowest projected owned of the 3. Yes, he's highest in my data model, but it's not by much. I mean, third, fourth, and ninth. I'm the lowest on Rose, but I can understand it. I mean, he's back in form, or at least he seems to be. Plays short courses extremely well. Par 4, par 5 scoring right there. So I understand Rose. I would go Tringali, McNeely, Rose, just like my rankings. But I'm also trying to, account for ownership now that I'm looking at it. I'd still go Tringali, McNeely, Rose, but all 3 of these are pretty darn chalky. So unless you're willing to go pure balance team and start at 8,900 or 9,000, you're going to have some chalk. The only way you're not, and if you're up here on the upper end of the price board, you're either going Jordan Spieth or you're going Matthew Fitzpatrick. Those 2 are pivots for the area, and Spieth is, honestly projected at 11.5%. That's not a pure pivot. So he's just pivot for the area of the price board. So unless you're willing to go full balance of, starting at 89 or 88, maybe Kisner or Streelman, you're going to be taking some chalk. And that's what happens with these 2 prominent withdrawals here. So now, just like last week at the Farmers, there was a bunch of haves and have-nots. It's kind of what you have here, except there's all halves up here. You're going to have to choose your chalk. I'm going to take Tringali as my chalk. Probably Cantley 2, but I like Tringali for the price. Cantley's probably the best play, no doubt about it. There's a reason why he's the projected most owned player. Nothing against McNeely, nothing against Rose. I'm just probably going to plant my flag on Tringali. Let's move to the 8s. You've got Palmer, Griffin, Seabass, Harmon, Hoagy, Hughes, Mito Pereira, Denny McCarthy, Charlie Hoffman, and Matt Jones. considering there's been some withdrawals, I'm surprised it's not Charlie Hoffman, because I heard if you hear withdrawal and back, your first thought should automatically be Charlie Hoffman. But as far as I know, he is still in the tournament. And if he's not, please jump in chat and let the community know. But of the 8Ks, there's quite a few people I like here. I'm pretty high on Lonto Griffin. I mentioned how I like Mito. Josh, one of the viewers, asked to pick a winner on Monday night, and I still hadn't gone through the deep analysis that I do on Tuesdays, the data model and such. I chose Mito Pereira only to not be chalky and say Cantlay. It turns out he was 11th in my data model. I mentioned how he normally excels at short courses. For whatever reason, lately he has not. But I mean, the recipe is there. Greens, avoiding bogeys, iron play is stellar. Par 4 scoring is great. Putts well on POA. So the recipe is there. I don't know why he has played so poorly on these short courses, but he has lately. That's the one downside. Also, calm weather. He doesn't play his best. He's best in the wind. But hey, I like Mito. I like Denny McCarthy. I like a lot of these guys. I mean, I'm out on Harmon. I'm out on Matt Jones. Otherwise, I'm playing most of these guys. And in the 8Ks, you've got 2 halves. Well, really 3 halves, and then 1 pivot, and the rest are kind of this area of the price board is getting ignored. It seems like people are gravitating towards the 9s just because of the withdrawals here. So they're gravitating towards the 9s and then venturing down in here. So this area of the price board, these 8Ks, especially the low 8Ks, are kind of getting ignored. And I like some of these low 8Ks, especially Mito. But projected ownership here, you've got Seabez and Mito at a pretty heavy chalky rate of 13.5%. You've got Hoagy and Lonto hovering just under that. So you've got 4 really chalky plays in the area, and then everyone else is pretty much a pivot. Ryan Palmer, I don't mind Ryan Palmer this week at all. 2nd in POA putting, 28th on short courses. He's sitting at a little over 6%. You've got Harmon at 5, Hughes at 7.5. I like Hughes a lot this week. I really do. 2nd best in short courses, 8th best in strokes gained par 4. And if scrambling matters, if around the green is going to matter this week, I don't know if it will or not, but if it does, you want Mac Hughes. So I like a lot of what Mac Hughes has to offer this week. I like a lot of what Denny McCarthy has to offer. He's at 7.5%. I'm less high on Charlie Hoffman, but I'll probably use him a little bit, especially if he's at 4.5% projected ownership. So other than the big 4 in this area, Lonto, Seabez, Mito, and Hoagy, which I love Tom Hoagy this week, but I'm going to have to fade him some amount just due to the amount of ownership. And I like Hoagy a lot this week. But it's upsetting to see him so popularly owned for this, especially for this area of the price board and overall. If I'm hovering in this area and I want to differentiate from Hoagy, I'll drop down to a Mac Hughes, or I might use a Mito instead of Hoagy and save 200 and use it elsewhere. I don't mind using McCarthy at all. So that's a look at the 8Ks. Let's move to the high 7s. You've got Aaron Rye, Michael Thompson, Russell Knox, Glover, Kirk, Minwoo Lee, Putnam, Kuchar, Mitchell, Damon, and Cameron Champ. And I mentioned how the low 8s are getting ignored. The high 7s are getting more ignored overall. There are a couple of guys who are generating interest, and then literally everybody else is a pivot. So Russell Knox at 12.5%, which is really upsetting. I was hoping he would be a sleeper. I will give you one little insight onto my DFS tournament fact sheet that I send to my subscribers. This is the one freebie you get. Russell Knox was my best value play. And just taking into account the price, the projected amount of ownership when I wrote the article, how I felt about his chances at the tournament, his prior success, like that, all of that generated value. I like Russell Knox a lot. He's jumped quite a bit in ownership percentage since, and when I say quite a bit, it's about 1.5%. So, to be clear, he's sitting at 12.5%. I don't want you to think he's 1% and think you're a true pivot. He's at 12.5%. But I love Russell Knox. I do. I love Russell Knox this week. Not to mention his prior success here at Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Top 10 strokes gained approach. Second best in greens and regulation. Almost, he's 11th best on short courses. Like, there's a lot to like about Russell Knox this week. He's at 12.5, like I mentioned. And then Matt Kuchar is at 7,600. And I've seen a lot of people beating the drum for Kuchar, and it makes sense that this is a course that should fit him. I'm just wary. Now, yes, he top 10 the Sony Open, which is a similar style course, I suppose. He's coming off 5 straight miscuts. He's kind of like Sung Jae. He's like Sung Jae for me was last fall, late summer, early fall, in that he was playing whack-a-mole. One event he'll lose a bunch with the irons and gain with the putter. The next he'll be okay with the irons, and he would lose something else. Although Sony was a fantastic tournament. I just want you to see the red that's bouncing around, approaches and then putting and off the tee and then around the green. It's not consistent right now. So when you put something together like the Sony, you can pop. So I understand the narrative. I'm cautious with it. That's where I'm at with that. So and seeing his ownership at high for this area of the price board, almost 13%. I'm okay leaving that alone and letting that be something that I lose to along with Day and Struman. That's just the risk I'm taking. So I want to highlight one person specifically in this area, and it's Aaron Rai. And now this is absolutely probably some recency bias, but I am a true believer in this guy's talent. No matter how weird he is with the iron covers and wearing 2 gloves and all that stuff, this guy can play. People don't realize that he won the Scottish Open 2 years ago, the week before the Open Championship. He's only had 4 measured events on POA, but they're good. They are good POA performances. He's generally the best when it's difficult, so hopefully he performs well at Pebble Beach. Hey, Darnell, welcome back. How you been, pal? It's been a little bit. Welcome back. What are you thinking about for this week? And how was last week? Hopefully you enjoyed the success that I did. That's how I'll put it. But yeah, Aaron Rai. I am all over Aaron Rai this week. I love what I see from him. When look, Farmers, POA 2.5, WGC Mexico, Chapultepec. Now this was 2021, 2.8. WGC Mexico in 2019, 1.5. Like, trying to take it down. Heck yeah, it was a successful DFS weekend, but I had Luke listed at 70-1, so I didn't give a shit about DFS when I have the winner at 70-1. But I'm glad you get to play it only a little. Yeah. It happens. Some of those weeks happen. Who are you liking this week so far? But yeah, I'm all over Aaron Rai. And if he doesn't play well, this will be one of the times next week where you come in and say, you're an idiot. And I'll say, yep, I agree. Yep, spot on with your analysis. But I'm all over Aaron Rai. Andrew Putnam is somebody else I really like. Good POA performance this week, or putting in general. Good with the irons. Great at par 5s, which I was surprised at, but he's great at par 5s. So I like Andrew Putnam a lot this week. So there are places you can go to avoid the Knox chalk. The Kuchar, chalk. Like I said, I'm all over Aaron Rye. I like Russell Knox. I'll use him. Putnam. Keith Mitchell to a little bit less extent. The guy's got talent. I mean, loads of talent. I'm just waiting for him to put it all together. Just waiting for him to put it all together. Completely out on Champ. I understand the California narrative. Sorry, I can't get there. Moving to the low sevens. We have... Okay, sorry, scrolling to make sure I have the right ownerships here. Low sevens. Hadwin, Rogers, Reevey, Snedeker, Pat Perez, Taylor Moore, Nick Taylor, Matthew Neesmith, Stuart Sink, Troy Merritt, Alex Smalley, Taylor Pindrith, Tagala, Brendan Todd, Dean Burmester, Davis Riley, Chad Ramey, Matthias Schwab, Harkins, Stallings, Whaley, Piercy, Schwartzel, Sig, Buckley, Spawn, Lipsky, good God, Stanley, Bramlett, Clark, Yeager, and Vaughn Taylor. Did you get all that? Because I didn't. Too many low sevens. Let's see. In the low sevens, Matthew Neesmith is a big chalky play in this area, and I was shocked by that. But looking into it, not really. We looked at him in the initial research show and how normally his irons are really darn solid. He just can't do a fuck thing else. Well, at the Farmers, he didn't hit his. I mean, he was negative to the field in irons, and I don't remember the last time he was ever that. Instead, he gained strokes on the greens. So I was more tempted to make that an outlier, but I was certainly keeping my eye on Matthew Neesmith this week, and it seems like a lot of people are. You like Harkins 100%. Let's check here. Brandon Harkins. I believe he was on tour last year. No, 2019. He was on tour, and he had some. I mean, he didn't have any high finishes, but I thought he was a fine PGA Tour pro. I guess he finished in the 126 to 150 category, and I think that's where he is this year. I mean, he has some decent stuff on the Korn Ferry Tour. He just doesn't have a lot of stats recently. When he has putt Poa, it's been good. He is very good on easy courses. So you might have something here. I don't. If someone just doesn't have stats, it's hard for me to get behind that player unless I know about it. Good history here at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Is that what you're saying, Darnell? Others in this low 7K that I like, while I'm waiting for Darnell's response, I like Hadwin, the putting performance. Playing, yes? Okay, so let's check that real quick because I have a spreadsheet. Now let me switch over to Microsoft Excel view, transition, Brandon Harkins. So this is sorted by average finish. Sorry, make sure chat's up. Brandon Harkins. Okay, so he's only played it twice, but you are correct. He has averaged a top 25 finish in those two events. He is 2 for 2 making the cut. 3.15 in strokes gained approached here at this tournament. Poa has not been a successful surface, at least this week, or the times he's played. Good enough greens. Avoids his bogeys. Yeah, you might be onto something here. I like it. I like it a lot. I kind of, it's not that I overlooked it, but I just saw 2 events, and I kind of glossed over it because if somebody doesn't have a lot of exposure, I kind of write it off as small sample size. The stats are there. They're absolutely there. You might be onto something there, Darnell. I want you to come back next week or in the comments throughout the weekend. Let me know how that works out for you. I really want to know. Because I don't know if I'll get to Brandon Harkins or not. You've certainly made a compelling case for him. I will give you that. That's a compelling case. If you're a big believer in course history, at 7,100, it's not going to break the bank either. I was talking about the low sevens and guys that I kind of like this week. Everyone probably has figured out now. I think Taylor Moore's probably one of the best, if not the best, Korn Ferry Tour grad. He has shown it. He has had some poor finishes on the weekend, but the guy can play. He belongs on the PGA Tour. Alex Smalley, same way. It was weird to see Taylor Pindrith come up because you think Taylor Pindrith, you think bomb off the tee, but he's pretty darn good at other things too, like par 4 scoring. The measured rounds on POA, he's been good. 2 rounds is big. 3. Well, it's only 2 rounds at Pebble Beach, so because this is a 3-course tournament like the Amex. So they have Spyglass, they have Monterey, and Pebble Beach. So he's only getting Pebble Beach twice. But that's the Excel spreadsheet that I just showed took into account the entire tournament, not just Pebble Beach. So yeah, you made a case for him, absolutely. But Tigala's another guy. Yeah, he's been playing well. He has been playing very well. He announced his presence definitely when he was, I think it was the Bermuda, that he was winning or tied for the lead, and then kind of faltered on the back 9. Loads of talent, absolutely loads of talent. I have other Korn Ferry Tour grads above him, like Taylor Moore, Smalley. I'm really high on Nick Hardy, even though the results haven't been there yet. Chad Ramey, but yeah, Tigala, absolutely. He's been playing good. Check Tigala real quick. POA, is that all from one tournament, I wonder? So we've got the Farmers. We've got, I don't see the Travelers. And then WGC. So Travelers here, okay. So he played it in 2020. He did gain. And then last week he gained on the greens. Okay. Yeah. And then the irons were fantastic, really, last week at the Farmers. Okay. Yeah. POA performance generally carries across tournaments, and that's why I've put so much weight into putting this week, is that POA is just such a different green type or grass type. Guys will have good weeks and bad weeks on Bermuda and Bent and whatnot. POA really, it looks like success carries over. If you're not good on POA, you're generally not good from tournament to tournament, and vice versa. If you're good one tournament, you're usually good on all the others. Okay. 2 compelling cases there at the low sevens. And you see I've got Tigala starred. That means he's in the top third of my rankings. So I was a little bit, I was looking there. Probably not as much as you. I'm definitely not going to have him 100%, but yeah, very good. I like the observations. I do. Let's see. Anyone else I want to highlight here? Rogers. I mentioned Alex Smalley, Pindrith, Tigala. I like Chad Ramey. I'm waiting for it to all click on the PGA Tour. This guy put up video game numbers on the Korn Ferry Tour. Riley, yeah, I'm a big believer in Davis Riley. I like Davis Riley. I really do. The putter will play. It's getting better, and it will play. I think the irons are better than what he has shown on the PGA Tour. I mean, the guy had loads of success on the Korn Ferry Tour, including a win. I mean, if a guy can win, he can win. He can close out a tournament. It's different to do it on the Korn Ferry versus the PGA Tour, yes, but if you've shown that you can't do it here, why would I believe that you could do it on the PGA Tour? And conversely, if you've shown that you can at least close out a tournament, you have at least had the experience of closing out a tournament. And he's done it twice on the Korn Ferry Tour. So yes, I'm a believer in Davis Riley. The results haven't been quite up to, I think, what people would accept if you're taking him in DFS and such, but the guy can play. And the proximity of Pebble Beach, he's very good at. He's very, very good at. So I got Riley in the low at the exact 7Ks. Sig, Buckley. For whatever reason, JJ Spawn always rates out well in my models, and I used him extensively one of the weeks. Might have been the Sony, might have been the Amex. I can't remember. It didn't work out, so now I'm the jaded ex-lover. Hankley Biota, JJ Spawn. Those guys are the warning signs for me. Can't get there, not after what they've done to me. But that's for the 7Ks. We'll hit a few 6Ks, and especially because this is where the commenter on Monday, and I want to get his name correct because all the credit goes to him. He mentioned two names. He mentioned Ryan Armour and he mentioned Satoshi Kodaira. And the commenter was Richard. So Richard, I really hope you're watching. You get all of the credit here for one of these two. Let's start with Ryan Armour, and he's at 6,900. And the comment was, since I was focusing on proximity and strokes gained approach, did these two names seem to fit? And at surface level for Ryan Armour, it seemed to. The approach, fairly solid, but the reason why it's been positive, it looks positive in the past 5, he topped 20 the Sony at almost 6.5 strokes gained approach. Now, I don't think Ryan Armour is Colin Morikawa with the irons. And if you look back, the last 5 measured tournaments with strokes gained approach, while they haven't been drastic failures, they also haven't been above field average. So this to me is the clear outlier here. He has been an okay iron player throughout his career, but nothing to the extent of 6.3. And if you go to the proximity that is most prevalent here at Pebble Beach, once Fantasy National decides to load, at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, 100 to 125, Ryan Armour generally doesn't do the best at. It's okay, but it's nothing off the charts. Whereas if it were last week at the Farmers, that's some of his best is these long irons. Now, proximity total, he's generally positive compared to the field always. You always like that, but the range here at Pebble Beach, I wasn't too terribly impressed with, so I was out on Ryan Armour. Now let's get to the guy that Richard mentioned that he's cooking. He's got some spice cooking with this guy. It's Satoshi Kodaira. And I kind of wrote him off. But, and I not to say I wrote Richard off, but I just kind of overlooked Kodaira. He doesn't just gravitate towards, my instincts. And Richard mentioned that while I was working on the data model, kind of doing a couple things here and there. I noticed the comment. So after I finished the data model, I realized he finished 23rd in the data model before accounting for extra percentage of whatever. Strokes gained putting on POA surfaces, 7th. Did not realize that. He is top 20, or we'll say top 30 in par 4 scoring, in avoiding bogeys, and in the proximity, which is one of the things that Richard mentioned. Strokes gained approach doesn't look fantastic being 44th in the field. It's still higher than the field average. And you look, POA, again, we saw he was 7th in the field. He's actually positive in POA. He is okay when it's easy. But the thing is here, look at his irons. They are getting better. They are slowly getting better. And that's what you like to see. Now, the Sony, where he top 15, he's not a 4.7 approach player consistently, but he has the spikes. 4.7, top 12. 5.8, top 20. You come back down here to the Honda, a very, very difficult course. Gained 6. Now, it's a middling finish because he couldn't chip, but still, I mean, he's got these spike performances. So I completely see what Richard was mentioning. If around the green does play any at all, Kodaira's in trouble. But he's decent enough off the tee. And Pebble Beach, off the tee can matter, but it might not. There have been years where it's mattered a little bit. There's years that it's been not mattered at all. The putter has been ice cold lately, but generally, past 10, past 20, he's been an okay putter. And we saw that POA is his best surface by far. I like what Richard was cooking with Satoshi Kodaira, absolutely. And then to see him pop 23rd in my data model, if I can find where the 6900s are. Yeah, so for Satoshi Kodaira to jump on my radar, I have to give Richard the full credit for that. So I really hope he's watching, because the credit goes to him for that. So that is one of my favorite 6K plays, just due to the putting and the approaches. I like Austin Eckroat a lot this week, a lot. And I'm not alone in that, unfortunately. Let me bring up projected ownerships here. Sorry, again, as I go through tabs on this other monitor, things get minimized. Austin Eckroat. Love Austin Eckroat this week. He is sitting at that's Grayson Sick. Eckroat sitting at 8.5%, which is fairly chalky for the area of the price board, but overall it's not. You come down in the 6Ks, there is nobody owned above 9%. Eckroat's the highest at 8.5%. So if you're willing to come down here, you're going to get a lot of leverage on the field. It looks like people are gravitating towards this pure balance lineup because of the withdrawal of Zalatoris and Berger. So if guys aren't going Cantley, and some are, 20% projected ownership, some are, if you're going to go a pure balance build, that might be unique enough. If you're pure balance, I mean, starting Brian Palmer and ending, Rye or, Keith Mitchell or Putnam or something. But, everybody in the upper nines is getting used a ton. Cantley's getting used a ton. The high eights, Seabez a bunch, Hoagy a bunch, Mito a bunch. So if you're willing to come down here in these 6Ks, you're cooking. You've got something brewing here. I like Kodaira. I like Austin Eckroat quite a bit this week. I'm not too comfortable going beyond, say, an Eckroat. But if I'm really coming down here in the bottom sixes, and I mean the dregs, the absolute dregs of the price board, I don't mind taking a look at Jim Knox. And that's only because of the POA. Josh, buddy, how you doing? Glad to see you come back from Monday. If you probably missed the intro, but because you had to suffer through it, you'll be glad to know that I've got not one but two drinks prepped tonight, so we don't have a fiasco like Monday. But you're catching at the fun time here. We're about to do our lineups. We're looking at some possible 6K plays. And again, this is only purely a narrative on the ability to putt on POA. Jim can also, and he has acceptable other stats. Like, clearly Brandon Wu and Bill Hawes, they have better ability to putt on POA, but Knox has other acceptable stats. Top 40 in par 5 scoring, which par 5 is probably the most important metric here at Pebble Beach. Par 4's okay, par 3's okay, good at the proximity. So Jim Knox, I wouldn't mind taking a shot with him. If you're playing one or two lineups like you are, Darnell, I would not advocate using Jim Knox at all. This is if you're in a multi-entry, tournament style. He's definitely going to get you a lot of points and a lot of uniqueness if he makes the cut. Somewhere else down here, like Johnson Wagner, maybe for the same reason. Putting, he's okay on short courses, okay at the proximity. So again, I'm not advocating like you go out and you bet these guys to win. You put them in all of your lineups and your in your contests. These are guys that you can throw some darts and, realistically have a chance at getting that lineup 6-6 through if you pick the other people around him correct. Just giving you some names. So that is a look at the price board for, or at least my look at the price board for the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. I'll give you one last look here at the final percentages that I gave. And if you didn't catch the beginning of this, right after the intro, I went into a pretty detailed reasoning why I used the percentages that I did. Make sure you go and listen to why I'm confident in 95% of the data model, and the 5% that I'm not is this, and I explain why. Before we switch to Microsoft Excel, let us look at the weather. And this time, as I didn't have with the farmers and have it prepared, I do tonight at Pebble Beach, and it looks beautiful. It really looks beautiful. High of 55, so it's going to be chilly. Ball won't go as far, but it doesn't need to. All three of these places are short. Not a lot of wind, when you can see that, like today, for example, they supposedly had quite a bit of wind. This place can get windy, and it can get brutal. It does not look like that's the case for any of the days. Any at all. Thursday, nothing. Friday, nothing. Saturday, nothing. And Sunday looks actually like it warms up a little bit. So the takeaway for me is it's chilly. So guys that play in the mornings are going to have a little bit tougher time getting distance. But I don't think it's going to matter too much because it's a short course. And generally, if there is, if it's chilly and dew on the ground, then those greens are receptive. And that means guys are going to be able to really attack courses, especially Monterey and Spyglass. So there's a look at the weather. Clearly no favored splits here or anything like that. So let's switch over to Microsoft Excel and bring up the lineup generator as soon as I figure out what's going on in my life right now. Transition to Excel. Again, I apologize. I've got two monitors, but I've got so many systems going on with the streaming software, chat, all that. So I will do my best to make sure you see the lineups that I'm generating tonight. But if you've joined late, be aware that we have 4 withdrawals. Will Zalatoris withdrew yesterday due to a positive COVID test. Daniel Berger withdrew today due to the back issue that he had at Torrey Pines at the Farmers. James Hahn has withdrawn, and John Huh has withdrawn. I do not know the reason for either of those two, but they have withdrawn. So be aware of that if you have submitted lineups, that you go and check and adjust as needed. But again, these are my straight rankings from Fantasy National, so you do not have to pause the show, keep going back and forth. These are taken straight from there. The ownership percentages are from right before the show, basically. So they might be a tad bit off. But I want to cover the tiers contests for those who play tiers. The tiers is really easy. It's Patrick Cantley, tier 1, unless they've adjusted it, because I looked at this early this morning. I don't play tiers. I don't pretend to be an expert in tiers. That's what I got. Sorry, I am deleting something off to the side here that I was gathering some information. It's not important. I'm not holding anything out from you. I was just gathering info. It's just Patrick Cantley. Will Zalatoris and Daniel Berger were the others in tier 1. So unless they've updated it, it's just Patrick Cantley. I don't know who I would pick, honestly, in tier 1. It's a tough decision. Tier 2, Cameron Tringali, Justin Rose, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Jason Day, and Jordan Spieth. Clearly, I am out on Spieth. I mentioned it as we went through the price board. Jason Day, a lot of success here at this tournament. I imagine it'll be pretty chalky. For whatever reason, he doesn't rate well in my data model. You should probably play him in some of your lineups if you're okay with the chalk. In tiers, I don't know. I don't know the lineup percentages and how it affects and stuff. I am out on Fitzpatrick. So for me, personally, it's Tringali. Although I would probably go Tringali, Day, and then Rose in tiers. Tier 3, we have, and see, I need to scroll over for y'all. Tier 3, we have McNeely, who's probably the best choice but the most chalky. Seamus Power, Ryan Palmer, Kevin Streelman, Kevin Kisner, and that's it. So a lot of people are probably going to gravitate towards Streelman and especially McNeely. If you're wanting to be unique in Tier 3, I would go with Ryan Palmer. Doesn't have the success that McNeely or Streelman have at this tournament, but he's good enough. It's good enough. Tier 4, Tom Hoagy, Lonto Griffin, Mito, Mackenzie Hughes, Christian Bezadenhout, Charlie Hoffman, and Matt Jones. I'm out on Matt Jones. I'm out on Hoffman, at least in tiers. I kind of like him in Classic. Seabez, yeah. For me, it's Denny McCarthy or Lonto Griffin, because I imagine Hoagy and Mito would be very popular. If you're wanting just the best play, it's Mito. Mito all day. Tier 5. Aaron Rye, Denny McCarthy, Chris Kirk, Lucas Glover, Michael Thompson, and Brian Harmon, and Minwoo Lee. Minwoo Lee is another player that I'm just barely, what's the word I'm looking for, familiar with. He is very high in the OWGR, the official World Golf Rankings. Don't know a lot about him, so I can't comment on it. If you know something and you feel comfortable, great, go ahead. I got nothing for you. Out on Thompson, out on Glover, out on Harmon. So for me, Chris Kirk is but I'm going Aaron Rye all day. I've been touting him all week. I've been telling people that this is my Luke list this week. Now, I'm not confident in saying like Aaron Rye's going to win this week like Luke List did last week, but I'm not even as confident that Rye will play as good, but this is my Luke List-ish type play this week. It's speculative, but I like what he brings to the table. Recency bias, sure, but he's shown that the POA performance is legit. His irons are great. I'm all over Aaron Rye this week. For the reasons I just said. I think chat is set up to be about a minute delay, so that's why. Hopefully you got all that. And once I generate a few lineups, like I said, this show will probably go long because I want to answer your all's questions. I'll go back and show you why Rye. Say that 10 times fast. Tier 6. You got Hadwin, Putnam, Rogers, Matt Kuchar, Taylor Moore, Matthew Neesmith, and Stuart Sink. Out on Sink. Neesmith's probably going to be popular, so I'd be out. Taylor Moore, I like a lot. Kuchar, probably not. I like Rogers. I like Putnam. I like Hadwin. Pick one of the four. For me, if I'm considering tier 6, I would probably rank it. Oh boy, this is tough. I'd probably go Putnam, Hadwin, Moore, and Rogers, but they're all pretty darn close. They're all pretty darn close. I don't think you can go wrong with either of those four, and they're not going to be as chalky as Kuchar and Matthew Neesmith, I would think. So that's hopefully help for you all who play tiers. I am now going to delete these columns, or at least majority of them, and let's get to the classic lineups. Okay. Hey, look at that. You can actually see the lineups now. I knew I have to scroll, but I have it there for you. So let me explain these three here before we get going. These three columns are 0%, but I have them listed That's your bet this week? Okay. Yeah, no, I looked at it. I looked at it pretty heavily. He was at 45 to 1 last I saw. In fact, no, I think I have it. I threw, because I've made 4 win bets. I think Lonto Griffin is one of them, actually. I think I did pull the trigger at 45 to 1 on Lonto. I'm pretty sure I did. Check my Twitter after the show. I'll put my betting card up there as I do every week, but I can't remember straight offhand whether I did on Lonto. I know 3 of the 4 win bets. I can't remember the 4th. It was Lonto versus Hoagy versus someone else, and I don't remember who I pulled the trigger on. But, all right, so like I mentioned, I have listed these stats. They are 0% in the data model, but I use these because these are some of the metrics that I've looked at pretty heavily this week. I seriously considered putting in the data model. I ended up not, but these will be used as kind of like tiebreakers if I'm between guys, generating lineups and whatnot. So just explaining why I have these 3 columns in here when they're not a part of the actual percentages that I used to generate the lineups. So I'm going to do my best here to keep the view at here as I bring up the projected ownerships. And let me make sure chat's up. So if you all can't see the lineups that I'm typing and talking, please tell me in chat, because I didn't realize last week that you weren't able to see it. So please tell me. But let's start with what I think is going to be a pretty chalky lineup this week, and it all depends on if someone's going Cantley or not. For the purposes of this, sorry, I know I'm making a lot of noise. I'm trying to get comfortable with the setup here. Let's say Patrick Cantley, if someone's going willing to go up to that level of in the price board, and if they're doing that, that means they're coming down probably. It looks like Grayson Siggs at 9%, Merritt's at 9.4%. If they're doing that, I'm going to try to save them some money and say Grayson Sigg, although, I mean, kind of take your pick here of who you think might be chalky. Like I said, Siggs at 9%, Eckroat's at 8.5%. We'll say Sigg, and we'll also say Matthew Neesmith. He seems to be getting a lot of play. He's at 7,300. Yeah, I like Merritt too. He's ranked pretty high in my data model. Where'd he go? He's in here, 29th. Yeah. Let me finish generating this lineup, and we'll take a look at Merritt here in a second. So you got Cantley, Neesmith, and Sigg, and again, Sigg can probably be changed around, but just trying to find some kind of chalk here. In the mid range, it's pretty clear that they're going like Mito. And then kind of depends on how they want to structure their lineup, whether they're more stars and scrub or they're balanced. But we have 8,100 per. So if they go a bit more stars and scrubsy, they could do something to the effect of probably the Zadenhoot. Yes, and the only reason I can type it that fast is because I've had to type it a lot. 45% on some sites. Like I'm sure you are. I am strictly Fantasy National, fantasynational.com, and that's where I source all of the info, all statistics. I've got him right at 20%, or they have him right at 20%, which is pretty darn chalky. When you have 2 of the highest 3 price guys and 2 of the 3 most popular players, maybe 2 of the 4 if you count McNeely, when Berger and Zalatoris withdraw, I mean, everyone's going to gravitate towards Cantley and McNeely. So they have 7,500 left in this theoretical chalky lineup, and 7,500, there's not really a big chalky play in here. Instead, it's someone like Ches Reavie, who is at 11.5%. So this seems like a standard chalky-ish lineup, give or take a couple of players. you're generating about 13.5% dupe in a kind of a major contest or a major tournament or whatnot, which honestly doesn't feel that bad because we were generating some 18 percenters at the Farmers, and that was ugly. I almost felt like I needed to shower right then and there. And this, to me, this seems like a bit of a balanced build with one kind of clear top guy. If you are wanting to use Cantley, and I mean, he's probably the best play, him or McNeely. If you're wanting to go Patrick Cantley, let me see if I can't generate you something that is more. It's a more of a risk. A lot of those guys that I just typed probably are safer bets, but you're going to gain a lot of leverage on the field if you are willing to differentiate yourself. So I mentioned Mac Hughes. Let's use Mac Hughes. Darnell, I'll use your suggestion here. I'm going to go Brandon Harkins just for the sake of argument. I don't want to use both, so I can use Tagala later on just to differentiate names. So let's bottom out here at Brandon Harkins, and then again, it depends on how Starsy and Scrubsy you want to go. If you want to get more balance, I talked about Taylor Pindrith, which was shocking. I like Hadwin and Patrick Rogers this week. So if you want to go by narrative, like Hadwin's played this course or this tournament well in the past. If it becomes a short game thing, then you have Hughes and Hadwin, who are both short game players. It still leaves you 8,000 per. You can go something to the effect of, I mean, if you want to take some chalk in Mito Pereira, who's a really good play, don't mind that at all. And then you have, say, Andrew Putnam, who I really like at 76. You can go Joel Damon if you like him, although he was pretty bad last week. Matt Kuchar if you like him. I'll say who did I say? Andrew Putnam. Now, this is still a bit chalky for my lineup, but it's still 3% less projected dupe in your contest at 50,000 than what it was. And if you're willing to come off Mito, like if you don't want to take any chalk, the chalk here with Cantley, you can come up to let's see, Mac Hughes. I like Denny McCarthy if you're willing to take that chance. I'm going to put in Aaron Rye. I'm all over Aaron Rye this week. That leaves me at 8,000, which is Matt Jones, who I don't like at all. You can go like Russell Knox. That's right at 10%. You want to be a little bit more different. Like, see, I think McCarthy's going to be too much. Yeah. So people like that. I mean, if you want to throw out some names to use, guys, by all means, go ahead. I'm just kind of generating some options for you all. If you don't want to use Cantley, you want to completely avoid the Cantley and McNeely mess. It's going to be really hard to do because everybody in the upper nines is so widely owned too. Guys are gravitating towards either using Cantley or picking, it seems like, two of the nines. So Cantley's at 20%. You've got McNeely at 19.5%. Day, Rose, Tringali, and Power all above 14%. Hopefully you caught me there. I know chat's on delay, but Mackenzie Hughes, I'm all over. Love Mackenzie Hughes this week. Pat Perez, I've looked at. He is rated a little bit higher than Troy Merritt in the data model. Perez is coming off a good week. He's good on POA. Now he can get himself into trouble on a course that can get you in a lot of trouble, which kind of scares me. He's not the best at the proximities either. But he doesn't get enough credit for his irons that are good. I like Perez. I think I like Troy Merritt a bit more, honestly, even though he's one spot lower in my data model. I just believe in the short course prowess, if you will. The greens look like they're bad. His irons really aren't that bad. Great on par 4 scoring, great at avoiding bogeys. If it's I was going to say if it's a scrambling contest. I mean, he's not bad at scrambling, but 10th at the length of the prevalent par fours here at Pebble Beach. I like Troy Merritt a lot this week. I really do. And he's sitting at 9.3%. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit more chalky than I would prefer, but you're asking Kuchar's at 12.5 or whatever percent he is, and Merritt's $400 less. Yeah, I like Merritt. To your question earlier, Darnell, why Aaron Rye? I'm going to have to go back to Fantasy National for this, so bear with me. Aaron Rye. There he is. So there's the wind. We talked about that. Let's click on Aaron Rye here. He was 8th. Oh, that's sorted by price. Excuse me. Like I said, I've lost my mind. Aaron Rye. So, POA performance. I've talked all week really how POA performance carries over from course to course. I don't like putting as a focused statistic. Some guys will have good weeks and they'll have bad weeks on the greens. POA generally is pretty darn consistent, and I found that in the research of the Farmers and now this. There are 4 courses that are predominantly POA. You've got, and they're all mainly West Coast with one outlier. You've got the Farmers, Torrey Pines. You've got Pebble Beach, the Pro-Am, and then all 3 courses in this Rota this week at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Monterey Peninsula, POA. Spyglass, POA. Pebble Beach, POA. And then the Genesis Invitational is POA. All 3 of those are all played in a similar time of the year, late January, early February, all on the West Coast. So those 3 make perfect sense. And generally speaking, I mean, there's obviously exceptions to the rule. Guys who putt well in one of those tournaments putt well in all 3 of them when they play them. The outlier course that's still in the Rota for the PGA Tour is TPC River Highlands, the Travelers Championship. And that's, Cromwell, Connecticut. How in the world why is that POA? I'm not an agronomist. I can't tell you. It has something to do with overseeding because it's bent grass overseeded with POA, and Fantasy National classifies it as POA. That's all I can tell you. Like I said, I'm not an agronomist. But that's a long-winded version of saying I love Aaron Rye and the putting on POA. It is legitimate. His result last week is legitimate of 2.4. Will he gain 2.4? Probably not, but he is positive on POA. He definitely is positive on POA. 2 towns over from Cromwell, Connecticut. If you are, that's pretty sweet. Have you been to the Travelers? That'd be a fun tournament. That's awesome. That is awesome. I imagine, is it pretty crazy? I bet it's a fun tournament up there. Now, the issue that I would have with Rye is that he generally plays its best when it's difficult. And while Pebble Beach is difficult, the other 2 are definitely not difficult. So, this is kind of like a Jordan Spieth factor here. Does he not take advantage of the easy courses enough? Or is he just bad on easy courses for whatever reason? Don't know. But he generally doesn't play his best when it's easy. A big reason why I am on Aaron Rye, the irons are for real. He had a real, I mean, look at this. He lost 6 strokes with the irons at the Amex and not a great putting week. And he still made the cut. Now, it's a clunker of a made cut. I get it. But the irons are for real. The putting on POA is real. Off the tee, even though it's mitigated in importance. There are some years where it's very prevalent here at Pebble Beach. He's good enough there. And the greens and regulation, which now that is the Fantasy National portion, I'm going to have to go back to Excel. The greens and regulation, which is probably the second most important metric here at Pebble Beach Pro-Am, the tournament. Let's see. Greens and regulation for Aaron Rye is top 15. So that is combine all those factors. That is why I'm so high on Aaron Rye. Love Aaron Rye this week. It's speculative. I get it. He has never played Pebble Beach Pro-Am, so there's no prior course knowledge or history to go on, see if he likes it or not. And it's, coming off the recency bias of the Farmers, sure. There's a lot to like. There's a lot to like. If you don't want to use him in DFS, I completely understand, because I've got an outright win bet, so I've got exposure to Aaron Rice. So if you don't use him in DFS, I get it. But if you don't have an outright bet, I would consider using some Aaron Rice. I think it's going to be a good week. And if it's not, this is when you get to come back next week and tell me, Nick, you're an idiot. And I get to say, yep, your analysis is correct. Let's see. I'm here for any of your questions. It's already been a fairly long show. I want to try to wrap it up. But again, if you have any last minute questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Let's generate a couple more lineups here real quick. Let's see. Gosh dang it. Now I want chat. Again, sorry, as I click through other things on this monitor. Okay, so if you want to ignore Patrick Cantley, it's going to be very, very difficult to do. You're going to have to start with either Matthew Fitzpatrick, who I don't recommend. If you know enough about Matthew Fitzpatrick, go ahead. I don't. So if I don't know something on somebody, I just don't use him. Thoughts on Seamus Power? Very good player, ranked 12th in my data model, best on short courses. There's enough to like here. What gives me pause is I will bring up the performance, past performance, and this again is just at this tournament. Seamus Power is not good at this tournament. He's somewhere down in the bottom here. If you see him, you can yell it at me. I feel like he was like an average of 70th. There he is. He's only 2 for 4 at this tournament. Averages a 71st place finish. Irons, which are generally pretty good for him, they're not good here. Not good at greens and regulation. He can avoid bogeys, but you really have to take advantage of par fives. He just hasn't done it in his 4 appearances here. Like if this were 1 or 2 events and he had this, I'd be much more accepting of it. But he's played 4 times in the past 5 years here at Pebble Beach, and it's not good. So while the data model says that he's 12th, you should use him. A couple of factors here for me. One, the past performance gives me pause, and the fact that he's 14% gives me pause. If I'm going to be in this area of the price board in the 9Ks, I'm going Tringali, and I'll probably, even though he's a lot more chalky, I'll probably just go McNeely because I'm more confident in McNeely than I am Seamus Power. I don't think Seamus Power is a bad play. I have enough reason to be cautious. I'll put it that way. Top play in the 9K range on DK. Yeah, I was talking about this when we went through the price board. It is tough in the 9Ks because you have a lot of ownership. There's one pivot in the 9Ks. It's Matthew Fitzpatrick at 6.8%. I can't use him because I don't know enough about him. I don't follow the DP World Tour, which used to be the European Tour. I don't follow it enough, so I don't know how his game is over there. What kind of form he's in. So if I'm out on Fitzpatrick, and Kisner's probably not at 9,000, then you're chalky. You are at the chalk. And for me, I'm going Tringali. I don't think there's a problem using Day. McNeely is a very smart, very logical play. It's going to be very chalky, but to me, it's Tringali. I think he's going to get his win sooner rather than later. I'm not going to call it that it's this week because List won last week, so back-to-back first-time winners. But this tournament has produced first-time winners in the past. I just like Tringali best at 9K in the 9Ks, but be aware they're all chalky. Unless you're using Matthew Fitzpatrick, they're all pretty chalky. So let me finish out this lineup here real quick, and then I'll take the last bits of questions here. So if you're trying to avoid Patrick Cantlay, again, you're going to have to take some chalk. I'm going to go Tringali because I've been talking about him. He's still, again, very widely owned. If you want to put McNeely there, great choice, logical choice. And then I'm going to come all the way down to Austin Eckroat. I've been talking about Eckroat a lot. I just like Austin Eckroat a lot this week. For you, Darnell, I'll put in Tagala here. He's only at 7.5%. Not exactly a pure pivot, especially considering his area of the price board. But in terms of overall ownership, yeah, I like it. I would be remiss if I didn't use Satoshi Kodaira that Richard mentioned on the comment from the Data Dive show. So again, Richard, I hope you're watching. Strowman's going to be real chalky. He's 14%, just like Seamus Power. Strowman has played this event 5 times. I think he's averaging a top 10 finish in those 5 times. It's ridiculous. His form here is amazing. But if I'm doing this kind of lineup here, I mean, look, I've got 9,800 per player that I could take at Patrick Cantlay as a great play, and now I'm to 8,400. 84 happens to be Mac Hughes that I like this week, and I mean this is more stars and Scrubsy. And a bit more ownership than I was hoping for, but I've got guys like Tagala, Kodaira, and Eckroat who are literally owned, even Hughes, literally owned, that I feel pretty good about, and I'm matching 2 of the probably best 4 plays that I personally think this week in Cantlay and Tringali. This is a lineup that I like. It's a bit more chalky, but that's what happens when Zalatoris and Berger withdraw. So hoping you all saw that lineup. If not, please tell me in chat and I'll recreate it real quick. But yeah, so I'll be on here for a couple more minutes. It's been a really long show, but I've really enjoyed the interaction. I do it all the time. Any last minute questions you all have, guys? Otherwise, I can look at my bets, I guess. I have 4 win bets and I have 4 top 20 bets, and again, my official card will be on Twitter here in a little bit. I gotta kind of wrap up the show on the back end and kind of get settled in for a long night as I generate and enter my lineups for DraftKings. But guys, it's been fantastic. Again, I hope you all will jump in the comments during the weekend or join Sunday night for the initial research show for next week, which next week's a fun tournament. It's the Phoenix Waste Management Phoenix Open, always a fun tournament. Guys, for any wagers that you've made this week at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, for all of your contests that you've entered for the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, and until I see you Sunday night for the next tournament's initial research show, may all your bets be profitable.